Hi, this is a video about writing linear equations. And the first one we're going to start off with is the one with slope-intercept form. And this is going to be the form y equals mx plus b. So let's say, for example, that you're trying to write an equation with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of -2. Well, all you're really going to do here is just write out that your slope is a value of 3 and that your y-intercept is -2, and then you take these numbers here and substitute them back into your equation, and you would simply just write y is equal to 3x minus 2, okay? Now there's another form of a linear equation, and that's called point-slope form. And this is going to be of the form y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. Okay, and I would use this if I'm given a slope and a point. So if I wanted to write an equation of a line that has a slope of 4 that passes through the point 1, 2, then I have this information. I have my slope, and I'm going to label this x sub 1 and y sub 1, okay? So I'm going to label those numbers over here. X sub 1 is equal to 1, and y sub 1 is equal to 2. Now, if I take these numbers and I substitute them back into my point-slope form of my equation, I end up getting this. I end up getting that y minus 2 is equal to 4 times x minus 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then solve this equation for y, okay, and put this back into slope-intercept form. So if I distribute my 4, okay, then I'm going to get y minus 2 is equal to 4x minus 4. I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I'm going to get the equation y is equal to 4x minus 2. All right, so this equation is in slope-intercept form, okay? That's in y equals mx plus b. Now, I know that my slope here is 4 and that my y-intercept is -2, okay? Now, given a slope and a point, I could also use slope-intercept form to write the equation of a line. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. Now the variables that I have my slope, which is 4. I have my x value, which is 1, and my y value, which is 2. The only thing that I don't have is b, okay? So I can substitute these values into my equation y equals mx plus b, and that's going to give me 2 equals 4 times 1 plus b. And all I've done is just replace y with 2, replace m with 4, replace x with 1, and add the b, okay? And then I'm going to solve this equation for b. So I've got 2 is equal to 4 plus b. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and I get -2 is equal to b, all right? So now that I have my y-intercept, now that I have my slope, I can write my equation y equals 4x minus 2 the same way that I had just before, okay? Let's look at another option. Now, if you had an example where you were given 2 points and you wanted to write an equation given 2 points, well, remember what you need a slope and a point. And we've learned previously that you can calculate the slope using your slope formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I'm going to do that up here. I'm going to label my points x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And I'm going to substitute these numbers into my slope formula here. So I'm going to get that my slope m is equal to 2 minus 4 over -5 minus 5. As a result, 2 minus 4 gives me -2. -5 minus 5 gives me -10. Negative divided by a negative gives me a positive, and 2 over 10 simplifies down to +1/5, okay? So I have my slope is equal to 1/5, okay? And that's okay. I can have a fraction as a slope, totally fine. But what I want to then use is my slope and a point. Now I'm going to choose my positive numbers to help me with that. And so I have a slope of 1/5. I have an x value of, what was that, 5, and a y value of 4. Now I'm going to use my formula, y equals mx plus b. I'm going to take all my numbers here and substitute them into this equation here, just like I had done on the previous example. This is going to then give me 4 is equal to m, which is 1/5, times x, which is 5, and then plus b. So now when I take 1/5 times 5, that's like taking 1/5 times 5 over 1. It's going to give me 4 is equal to 1 times 5 is 5, 5 times 1 is 5, plus b. Now 5 divided by 5 is simply just 1. So 4 is equal to 1 plus b. And I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, and that's going to give me a value of 3 is equal to b. All right. So I have my slope, I have my y-intercept, and I can write my final answer as y equals 1/5 x plus 3. Okay, and all I'm doing is taking my slope, substituting it in for m, taking my y-intercept, plugging it in for b, and then writing my equation. Okay. Now I could have also used point-slope form to do this, but I kind of like this equation best, and I think this is the easiest. All right, we've got one more equation to look at. Okay, and that version is called standard form. Now, standard form means that x and y are both on the same side of the equal sign, and that a is a positive number, okay? Kind of weird. But let's just look at a couple of the problems that we've done in those equations, and we're going to transform them into standard form. All right, let's first take a look at y equals 4x minus 2. Now, what I want to do is I want to move my 4x to the other side of my equation so that I have x and y on the left side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Okay, though it's going to cancel out there. And since these aren't like terms, I can't combine them. So we're simply just going to have negative 4x plus y is equal to negative 2. Now, I can't have a leading coefficient over here of a negative number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the entire equation by negative 1. And what that's going to do, if I distribute my negative 1 into each of those, it's going to make everything or flip the sign on everything. So it's going to be positive 4x minus y is equal to positive 2. Okay, and that's my equation in standard form. Now this equation and this equation, those are the same thing. Okay, so they mean the same thing. All right, they're just in different forms. Now if I do the same thing over here on this side, I'm going to subtract 1/5 x, same thing, minus 1/5 x, and as a result, I'm going to get negative 1/5 x plus y is equal to 3. Now, I don't want a fraction, nor do I want a negative number. So I'm going to multiply this entire thing by a negative 5. And when I do that, I'm going to distribute that, and it's going to divide out my numbers here. So 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. So we're simply just left with x minus 5 times y. And then negative 5 times 3 gives me negative 15. So again, this equation here and this equation here are the same thing, okay? But you have to be able to go from one form to the next. And I'm just doing a little bit of algebra and following a couple steps. Hope you enjoyed this video. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.